The story starts here in the heart of the city.
We've been following the story since it first broke. Everyone's waiting to find out what's next.
It's an issue here and for residents around Boston.
Now the city is buzzing.
It's a story you first saw on SU News.
Exclusive details you'll only see here.
And now, we're getting the answers.
We track down the details.
It's the talk of the town.
It's all coming up on SU News.
Hello, and welcome to SU News, a student-produced newscast during the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. I'm Maxim Isaac. Let's start off with Eddie giving us a quick rundown of today's top stories.
The Massachusetts Department of Public Health revealed Thursday 1,228 new positive cases of coronavirus in the state and 32 new related deaths, bringing the state totals to 8,966 confirmed cases and 154 deaths. Governor Baker announced this week the extension of the stay-at-home advisory, pushing it back until May 4th. Baker also announced that he believes the peak of the cases in Massachusetts will be between April 10th and April 20th. Also, Suffolk University will be converting one of its dorm buildings, Miller Hall, into housing for the homeless, providing 170 beds for those without a home in Boston. Sports may be on a hold, but there was a major touchdown in Boston this Thursday as a Patriots team plane landed at Logan Airport with over 1 million N95 respirator masks. Baker and his administration bought the masks from China and worked with the Kraft family to see that their arrival in Boston went smoothly. For SU News, I'm Eddie Reinhardt. These have been your top stories.
Governor Baker continues to work on stopping the spread of the coronavirus. One of his latest initiatives is targeting the way we shop at grocery stores. Alexandria Ocasio has the story.
With crowded aisles and long lines, new restrictions for grocery stores have been imposed by Governor Charlie Baker.
As the state of emergency continues, only essential stores are still open. That includes grocery stores, pharmacies, and liquor stores. Shoppers are banned from using reusable bags, and stores must provide sanitation stations.
As we continue to monitor this outbreak, it's important that these places, which are often visited by large amounts of people on a daily basis, are observing DPH guidance on sanitation and social distancing. We also need to make sure we make appropriate accommodations for our most vulnerable residents so they can safely do their shopping for food and supplies.
The state has also mandated that stores have special hours for anyone over the age of 60 to shop. Now, some chains are even limiting the number of customers allowed inside their stores. Other stores have limited the number of high-demand products that a person could purchase.
With this plan, officials say that they hope to suppress the spread of the virus while helping people get the food and supplies that they need. Reporting, I'm Alexandria Ocasio.
As essential stores are making changes, presidential candidates are also finding new ways to continue campaigning while complying with the CDC guidelines of social distancing. RJ Agostinelli tells us more about how the candidates are adapting to the changing conditions in their race for November.
With the coronavirus affecting almost every aspect of the 2020 campaign, the candidates have been forced to abandon the typical campaign playbook, relying heavily on digital interaction. In compliance with CDC guidelines, candidates have moved to hosting virtual town halls, fundraisers, interviews, and press briefings. Former Vice President Joe Biden has begun doing regular events from his home in Delaware, while Senator Bernie Sanders has also hosted events featuring surrogates, supporters, and medical professionals on the front lines. Even back home in Massachusetts, Democratic primary foes Joe Kennedy and Ed Markey have also been hosting virtual events. With CDC guidance and social distancing expected to last until the end of April, there is no word on when normal campaigning will resume. Reporting remotely, RJ Agostinelli, SU News.
Many international students find themselves in a tough spot after being forced off campus. Now they're trying to juggle their course load in different time zones. Amy Kazera talked to a few Suffolk students about how they're personally dealing with the crisis.
Suffolk, like many other universities, made the difficult decision to cancel all in-person classes for the remainder of the semester during their spring break week. As a result, students were not prepared to leave campus on what turned out to be the last day of classes. For international students living in the dorms but using the break to travel back to their home country, they found it especially troubling as borders started to close due to the coronavirus pandemic.
It's a really huge decision in my life because you don't know when you're going to back home, if you will stay in Boston, for how long quarantine is going to be.
Nika arrived for her first semester in the U.S. this January. She never expected she'd have to return to her home in Ukraine so soon. Although the residence halls said they would allow her to stay in the dorms instead of flying back home, she opted to return to her home in Ukraine to be with her family during the tough time.
It was like a panic when they told us that it's going to be online, that you don't know what should I do. And when I came home, I was just I was so scared. I'm just I see my family and I'm so happy to see them, but they were so scared to see me too because they didn't know what is going on with me. So maybe I got something in the airport.
Another student had been in her home of Jamaica when she learned she would not be returning to classes at Suffolk or to her dorm room.
I came for spring break and then I had to go back up to go and move out the dorm. But I literally came back home the day that Jamaica closed their airports to everywhere. Literally the day.
Another student, supposed to be graduating in May, hadn't returned to her home country of Venezuela in 3 years. For months, she had been planning a trip to visit her family for spring break, but just 3 days before she was supposed to fly back from visiting her family to her apartment in the U.S., Venezuela suspended all flights until further notice.
They were going to suspend all flights coming in or out of Venezuela. So I couldn't go back, and I'm stuck here until further notice. All the airlines have left just because the government wouldn't pay them.
Each country has had its own share of challenges in managing the coronavirus. Some students are facing more uncertainty than others based on how their country's government is dealing with the crisis.
When you watch TV, they always say that there's a lot of tests, that they brought them from China, and there is a lot of news and everything is going well. But right now, everything is only increased. We would have the same situation like in Italy. We won't know how to treat people, and here will be more deaths than in Italy.
I think the Prime Minister and the Minister of Health have done such an exemplary job. Before COVID-19 came to Jamaica, there were several press briefings that were held in Jamaica to get our people in the mindset of the possibility that it would come to Jamaica, because we're really small, so we can't we don't have enough beds, and we don't have enough ventilators. We can't handle something like that.
Taking online classes in a country facing political turmoil has posed additional challenges for Alex.
In Venezuela, it is unfortunately very, very common to have water outages and electricity outages, and so the internet is not very stable. The healthcare system was already down the drain, it was in ruins. People die by the day here. It's something really normal because they don't have the resources in hospitals and things like that. So there was already a huge healthcare crisis. But then with the corona, we don't have the infrastructure to control this kind of outbreak.
Suffolk has reached out to its international students via email and is sending them weekly newsletters with resources and updates about the virus. As rules and regulations continue to change, students are hopeful they will have answers soon. Reporting in Dartmouth, I'm Amy Kazera, SU News.
On the other end of the spectrum, some international students are stuck in the U.S. Rohan Gayo has this part of the story.
Schools are canceled or moving to virtual courses due to coronavirus pandemic. Most domestic students choose to take online course at home. However, for many international students, going home seems to have become an untouchable desire. As an international student studying in Suffolk University, I'm staying in an apartment in Medford to take my virtual courses. As a student, I'm completing my assignment at my apartment. As a student reporter for SU News, I'm reporting in Medford. As a daughter of my parents, I am forced to stay away from my home country. Here are some voices from international students as me who are still in America.
Because of the restriction policy, there were no direct flights that could take us back. I have booked 4 flight tickets, but all of these flights were cancelled. It has very high chances for people to get infected during the flight. So for now, all the new cases in China are imported, and the most 90% of them are from those return students. So if a student got infected during the flight, the semester hasn't ended yet, so it could be impossible for them to finish their courses anymore. And especially for those senior students, they could not graduate on time anymore. As a prospective graduate student who already got an offer from Dream School, I really need to come back to my home country to get my passport visaed again, because my US visa will be expired soon. The school does not allow students to defer to the next year, which means that if I cannot come back home to renew my visa, I'm gonna miss this chance to pursue one of my biggest goals in my life.
Although it's a tough time for everyone, the important thing is our hearts are together and share difficulties no matter where we're from. Reporting in Medford, I'm Rohan Gao, SU News.
At this time, we'd like to take a moment to share our experiences of what we have been dealing with and how we're dealing with the crisis. Haley Clegg and Hannah Royal have more.
As student reporters, we've worked tirelessly to bring you all the top stories from around Boston. We've spent long nights editing, countless hours in the studio, and become connected through storytelling. COVID-19 has changed everything for us. And while we've worked to bring you the story, it's time to tell our stories. For our international reporters, finding their way home has been a struggle.
A lot of us, especially international students, we can't go back home and we can't spend this time with our family. I personally am from Mexico and I haven't been able to go back home for over 2 years. So it's just been really hard.
For me, the main issue is I cannot back to my home country because the airlines were kept canceled. I haven't been my home nearly a year, and every time I FaceTime my parents, they cried. I really miss my hometown, really miss my parents, really miss my brothers and sisters, and also miss the foods of my hometown.
And for Daria, she didn't know that going back home to Russia for spring break would be permanent.
I was never able to come back to the United States because the United States started closing borders and Russia started closing borders, and it was just really unsafe for me to travel. So I decided to stay here, and now we're on a lockdown. We are able to leave our houses just to get essentials and to go to the closest grocery store or to the closest pharmacy.
One of our reporters continues to bring you the story in Boston by working at Channel 7.
Adjusting to life in quarantine hasn't been easy. After classes were moved online, I was sent home from writing at Channel 7 to work remotely. It's definitely been an adjustment working from home and no longer being in the newsroom around all of the writers, producers, and reporters who I used to see on a daily basis. Others who interned at Channel 7 were forced to cut those experiences short.
When I found out my internship was suspended, I just felt like the world stopped. I know this virus is an international issue that we have no control over, but Channel 7 was my first internship. I know I am grateful I got the opportunity to get my feet wet, but I still didn't get the chance to shadow a reporter or learn more about the industry before I graduated.
The arts industry has been heavily impacted by the virus. Boston's experience has been no different.
As one of the arts and culture editors for the Suffolk Journal and an e-board member for Suffolk Free Radio, a lot of what I do is rooted in the arts. Not being able to cover concerts every week and host acoustic Sundays has taken a big piece of my identity. I'm going to miss being able to talk to some of the great local artists that we have here in the city every week.
A few of us were living in on-campus housing and left our jobs as student leaders to be home with our families.
For me, leaving campus meant that I left behind my home of 4 years. I left behind my residents who I would see daily, and I left behind student leadership. And getting to know people and help people on campus is just something that I really like to do and something that's a huge passion of mine.
I was in RA, so I was living in the dorms, so I lost my home. And then after that, I started to think about all of the student leader opportunities I would have that I would never be able to fulfill in my last semester. I was never going to be able to play in my last concert with my jazz band, and I was never going to be able to put together another edition of the Suffolk Journal in print.
As someone with a pre-existing health condition, RJ has had to take important steps to protect himself from the virus.
While I am limited in my ability to do normal activities, I still take many precautions when returning home. Please wash your hands after being outdoors and keep your hands away from your face and mouth. I am doing my part. Please do yours. It is up to everyone to protect our most vulnerable populations from the coronavirus.
As a commuter student, Aneem has looked at the brighter side of the situation at hand.
I hate to say it, but moving all classes online has certainly made things a little bit easier for me, but for unfortunate reasons. I did lose necessary school resources to do certain assignments, and that's why you probably won't see me doing any more news reports for this class anymore.
We've all been through new adjustments, but sometimes that just means that we have to bring our passions back home.
I do find myself being more creative at home. When I'm reporting from my house, it's definitely a different environment, but I try not to sacrifice my content. Also, in my free time, I love perfecting my makeup and just playing in makeup in general. Being in quarantine has helped me perfect my passion in makeup and in journalism.
It's the bonds we share that have brought us together to continue reporting, continue laughing, and doing what we love. Stay home, stay safe, and we'll see you next time on SU News.
That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. To stay up to date with our content, please follow us on Twitter at SU News for you and like us on Facebook at SU News Spring 2020. For the entire class, I'm Maxim Isaac, and we'll see you next week.